I started sewing in about 8th grade. I took an elective in middle school that taught me how to make a little goofy hat that I wore for about a year. And I sort of, that was my first foray into learning how to use a sewing machine. So I learned to sew and then went into knitting and crocheting. So knitting, crocheting, a lot of other sort of smaller handcrafts that I was constructing objects with. And sewing didn't start back up again for, about a decade after that. So I learned about Bernina just through so for me, I made up sewing on my own very poorly in my studio with the sewing machine someone had given me. And then as soon as I started to learn about sewing industry and this kind of a thing, people would, say, oh, you need a new machine. Well, here's the obvious choice because Bernina is kind of industry standard for anyone who cares about quality. And so I learned about it through word of mouth of people just sort of extolling its virtues. Well, I just got a Bernina for the first time about 4 months ago, so this is my first experience, and I will say that I'm already hooked. Using a couple of the features that this machine has that was an upgrade from my previous machine has really added a bit of efficiency, which is really important to me in my practice, as well as just a smooth running and just convenient functional machine. So Bernina to me is both this machine that's really been helpful for me in kind of learning how to sew when the only constraints are the material. So I know the machine works great, and I know the only problem is me pulling or nudging it in wrong way. So I get to actually focus more on the material, but also this larger company. So when I think of Bernina, I think of my friends who own shops, the company itself who's been so supportive of me, and a lot of content, as well as a lot of engaging tools and things that have really helped in my practice. So I'd say my favorite part of working with Bernina and being a Bernina ambassador is, probably twofold. Obviously having access to and learning about the equipment and the machines and, really playing with my new Bernina and having a whole staff behind me helping me figure out how to do what I do better. Even though I've been doing it for a decade, I get to learn something new every day. But as well a community, a larger community of sewers looking at my work, working with Bernina, creating some content, as well as the whole staff of Bernina helping me reach out to social media as well as work on my own individual projects. So my inspiration really comes from my background as a designer and an architect. So I really try to answer questions with my work. So it's not so much about I'm pulling visual inspiration as much as I'm pulling conceptual inspiration. I make art objects that really want to have a conversation with the viewer, create exhibitions that really spawn questions and then answer those questions with the objects that I'm constructing. So my inspiration really comes from my pursuit of explaining the things that I'm interested in, both in terms of concept and as well as material manipulation.